brands because, like I say, I don't do this for a living. I do this for fun. Charles, thank you for joining us. All right, guys. So now we're going to get into our Q&A portion, and I really wanted to just get into this brand because when you look at it, it's very low key, it's very classic, it's not very showy. But the beauty of the brand is really in the movement and the finishing and all that. So I'm really excited to talk about that. But I was doing a lot of research, and I wanted to dig into the concept of the natural escapement. So I'm going to paraphrase my understanding of what a natural escapement is, and then you can tell us and correct us. But the typical watch has what's called a Swiss escapement, which has a lot more friction points because it has one wheel, right, that goes back and forth, and that's why you hear the tick, tick, tick. The natural escapement uses two wheels. It uses less friction, less power, it can be more precise. But as I understand it, the man who invented it, Louis Breguet, who was the watchmaker for Marie Antoinette back in the time, it didn't work that well back then because the technology didn't allow them to really make it work. And so you guys have taken something, an old concept, but done it with new technology. Tell us a little bit about this natural escapement.
Yeah, so thank you for everybody to be here. Thank you for the writer to host us. Thank you for all the sponsors to be part of it. It's an honor for us at Laurent Ferrier to be able to present you our creation and to share with you. So to answer your question, when Laurent and his son Christian decided to create an automatic movement, they were looking for something that would have enough energy to be able to last at least 3 days. Because for Laurent, one of the criteria when developing a watch is it has to last from the Friday to the Sunday, otherwise it's not a watch and it can be in the garbage. Unfortunately, with the micro rotor winding system, it's hard to get more than 2 days. But as Daniel was pointing out, the interesting part of the natural escapement is that it uses very few energy and it gives us the possibility to last these 3 days. The main interest of the natural escapement is obviously the precision. Watchmakers are always looking for the microsecond that will make the watch better than the other. And in the case of a natural escapement versus a Swiss escapement, usually on the Swiss escapement, like say you have 3 days of power reserve, after your first half, 1.5 days, your precision will slowly decline. Well, in the case of the natural escapement, over the 72 hours, your first 60 hours will be a perfect, precise accuracy, while the last 12 hours will be a steep decline in the precision. So it's going to maintain the longest possible the precision of the movement compared to the other escapement, which will unfortunately see earlier decline, not as steep as with the natural escapement.
And the other thing is, like I was mentioning, is you've got that classic front, but really on the back, you've got this amazing movement, and you have a lot of finishing. And you were mentioning that's really kind of it's a selfish watch. How are you mentioning it?
So a lot of the Swiss mentality is, not necessarily to show or to expose whatever wealth you have and things like that. And so in the case of Laurent Ferrier, it's really that idea which you've seen the timepieces, they really look very elegant, but they don't really reveal or position themselves where we are. And this is why we call it a selfish pleasure, because only you know what it is, especially when you take it out of your wrist and you start to look at the finishing on our watches. All our movements are completely hand finished from A to Z. You're looking at more than 200 hours, our watchmaker with small wood sticks polishing every single component. Whether you see them or you don't see them, it doesn't matter. It has to be pristine. And the same finishing on our entry price or our top of the line collection. So this is very traditional, and that's why when Laurent created the brand, the idea was to try to respect as much as possible the code of the traditional watchmaking, but also to be inspired from pocket watches. And thus, in pocket watches, the decoration of the mechanism were always very impressive, because that was the beauty of it, not just the dial, but the overall aesthetic of the watch.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you look at these old pocket watches, and they didn't have the exhibition backs back then, the glass back. So you really had to take the thing apart to see it, and yet the finishing was amazing.
Yes.
So it shows the pride that they put into it, that maybe you would never even see it,
Yes.
but yet the maker took that time. So what was the reason for starting the brand? I know the brand's what, like you told me it's 16 years old.
Correct. So it started in 2010. That's when we officially presented the first timepiece, which is the tourbillon that we have here. But it started a lot more before. Laurent Ferrier is a history of family, a history of friendship. It started a lot longer before, because Laurent, besides being a watchmaker, is also an amateur driver, especially for endurance races, like the Le Mans race, if you are familiar with that. So him and his business partner, François Servana, participated multiple times to the race. In 1978, they finished first of their category. In 1979, they finished third overall of the race, behind Paul Newman, who was second.
That's a hell of a watch.
To the point that Laurent said, no more watchmaking, I'm going to be a driver. He realized after a couple of years that watchmaking was his thing, so he went back to work at Patek Philippe. That's where he was working for almost 40 years. And so that's why we say it's a friendship business, because François and Laurent, during that race in '79, they really started to click and connect together, to the point that Laurent offered to François a Nautilus at that time, and François told him, well, when you're tired of Patek, come and see me, we'll do things together. So it took them a little bit of time, but in 2010, that's when they started. And it's a family history, because in the company, Laurent is obviously the name and the wine behind it, but his son Christian is also a movement developer who works for other brands. And so Laurent has more the aesthetic overall vision of it, while Christian is more the technicality of the mechanism. So friendship and family, that's what drives us, and that's why we are located in a house, not in a building. We really try to make everybody feel like family.
Well, I think one of the things that our group loves is independent brands. And Miami's a lot about entrepreneurship, so we understand that kind of ethos of starting something, having a dream, and making it happen. I think it's very Miami. So that's one of the reasons I connect with it. And I love the idea that there's something for the public, but then there's something for you that's hidden.
Especially in the case of the tourbillon, which you don't see from the front.
Yeah.
There's only a small line written on the dial, so if you're not familiar with the brand, you'll never know that it's a $200,000 watch. And this is what some of our collectors like, the fact that it's their pleasure, not necessarily for the other to see right away what it is, but to ask, what are you wearing? I'm interested, what is it? And it's their decision to show it or not, so that's why it's really selfish. Sometimes we're really selfish.
So you mentioned that piece, the tourbillon piece. What other pieces should we be looking out for?
I mean, every piece has its own life and is complementary to the other one. The tourbillon is obviously for us one of the emblematic pieces, because it's one of the few movements in the watch history that also won twice the Grand Prix de Genève. In 2010, when we started the brand...
It's like the Academy Award for watches.
Correct. So in 2010, when we started, we had the best men's watch. And then last year, again for that same tourbillon, but in a different case, more sporty, we had the best tourbillon prize. So that makes it one of the few movements that won twice a prize during these Oscar ceremony. Then there is our new annual calendar with the moon phase, which is something that we are very proud, because it took a while to develop. The sports watch, our micro rotor with the natural escapement. When you ask me which one sticks out, I told you it's impossible, because they all have their own story and they all exist on their own in a way. And the best ones are the ones to come as well. Because so far we are small, we only started a few years ago, but it takes time to make time, and it takes time to make these beauties. If you have the time, you see on the video some of the watchmakers working with their tools, they really put all their love and passion. That's why when they produce a watch, it's the same watchmaker who will do it from A to Z, including the decoration. Because it has to be like that, that's the traditional way. And we are able to do that because also we produce only about 500 timepieces per year, so it's not a lot.
And if something happens to the watch, we know exactly who's going to
Oh yeah. We can call him back and we can, put him in the doghouse and so on. I mean, they are only humans, so unfortunately we're not perfect.
Well, we want that. We want the human element.
Thank you.
Questions before we go back to looking at these fine pieces. Questions from anyone about this brand? I always love when we get someone straight from the manufacturer here.
So they only make 2 sizes?
No, so what you see are the size that we use, but when we discussed regarding the tourbillon, I did mention to you that yes, we have it here in a 41 millimeter, but we also produced in the past in a smaller size than 39 millimeter. Otherwise, the watches, as you see, are the sizes that comes and nothing else. But then we do have other models than the one that are here. As you understood, we're a small company, so we can't have too many watches to show because our priority is to deliver our collectors. But we take a lot of pride to what we do, and I hope that you will like them and appreciate them the way we do, and we can't please everybody